The more I learn, the more I question. Question what? Many things. Almost everything. There are things that I, through my experience, have learned for sure are true. There are things that I've also learned are true only if you believe them, because you can make them true. And that is a very dangerous thing. And to an extent, that has made me go back and reevaluate what I believe across the board. Because how much of what we believe is true only because we believe it. And what if what's true and what is right are two different things? What if it's true because we believe it, but it's not the right thing to do? What if the way we live works only to an extent? In many ways it doesn't. In many ways it's unhealthy. In many ways it's killing us slowly. And what if we're only holding on to it because we're used to it and we think it's normal? Everybody else does it, and they're not dropping like flies immediately. They're not dying from it immediately. So how do we know that it's really detrimental? That it's really that serious of an issue? But the more you study, the more you find how detrimental some things really are. And how powerful what we believe is. What if the way we live our lives is exactly what's holding us back from creating the kind of life that we want? And what if how we think about it is actually what's holding us in that prison? What if our fear of success and our fear of failure and our fear of everything else is actually what's keeping us from living fulfilling lives? What if that fear is actually keeping us from finding the truth? Because we're afraid of what we'll find if we look. Because part of us knows that when we look, we're going to find that what we believe isn't true, and everything we believe is going to unravel. And we're afraid of that. Because we're afraid that when it unravels, there won't be anything left. There won't be anything of our lives that's meaningful, and we'll be lost. And we're afraid of feeling lost. Because we're afraid that we can't trust anybody to help us. What if most of the suffering, the unhappiness in the world is needless, and we're causing it ourselves by the way we live and the way we think? Because how we live is based on what we think, what we believe about ourselves and the world and how things work and what's right and what's wrong, what's natural, what's not natural, what's normal, what's not normal, what's popular, what's not popular. What if we're living by the wrong things, but we're too afraid of what might happen if we look to actually look and find out what's true? A lot of people use "I don't know" as an excuse, but really they could know if they actually put in the time to learn. But they don't. Why? It's usually fear. What holds people back from making money? Fear of success? Fear of failure? Fear of making a fool of themselves? Fear of what other people will think? What if those fears are exactly what keeps us trapped in unhappiness and insignificance and failure and feeling horrible about ourselves? What if fear is actually the real root problem of all our problems in life, all our unhappiness? In the decades that I've been studying human potential, there's a common thread. Every single time I look at why people aren't achieving their potential and what people are really capable of, and why they don't even know about it. And that common thread is fear. And it's not just my finding. It's commonly known in the sciences, especially psychology, but other sciences have discovered it as well indirectly. And what if, just like hypochondriacs, what we don't like about our lives is true of our lives. What we don't like about ourselves is true of ourselves just because we believe in it. What if all these beliefs that you cling to for the wrong reasons are exactly what is keeping you prisoner in your unhappiness, your failure, your emptiness, and all these things that you try to do to fill that emptiness, to fill that void, to fill that unhappiness, are actually just distractions from it and from the solution? What if all of these addictions and abuses, drugs, alcohol, power, control, sex, are all actually just distractions and attempts to feed the void, to make ourselves feel better, because we're so unhappy with our lives and how little meaning there is in them, and how trapped we are by our own fear? What if the problem is singular in all our lives? What if all of our problems, all of individual and societal problems, are based on one problem: fear? What if the root of all suffering, all conflict in the world was fear? And your fear of the truth is what kept you from learning the truth and kept you unhappy. The more I've studied and the more I've questioned, the more I've started unraveling the myths of society, the things we believe that aren't true, the things that hold us back. And this is what I've found. And what's worse is this is not just my finding, but it's actually a common finding. But because of how society is, people avoid getting the help that they need because people who need help are looked at as weak. And yet, if you are weak and if you need help, getting help makes you stronger. So the solution to the weakness, if it is true, is actually what's considered bad. Do you see how that logic is a trap? What if all the rest of it is too? So I invite you to be courageous. To be fed up enough with being sick and tired, and being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and step out of your comfort zone and test your boundaries and find out what's really right and true. And start that by facing your fears and learning about what fear actually is and how to overcome it. Because the key to success in every area of life seems to start with overcoming fear and learning the truth that sets you free. And I'm not speaking from a purely spiritual standpoint here, although that definitely is appropriate. I'm speaking from a more fundamental, real-life applicable basis, in a much more significant way than we usually view spirituality in most religious traditions. And this can be addressed purely from a scientific standpoint. And yet, both perspectives, the scientific perspective and the spiritual perspective, actually, if you look at what we've learned and what works, they actually agree. They use different terms, and so we don't see them as being the same thing. But if you look at the definitions, they actually agree. Science and spirituality both agree. People just don't look at it that way. Don't think of it that way. Use different terminology. That may be a little confusing, maybe a little vague, but that's okay. Because I can't take the time right now to explain it to you without going into a hell of a lot of detail. But if you really want to understand your life, your happiness, your unhappiness, your success, your failure, and how to be the kind of person that you want to be, how to be successful, how to be powerful in the right ways, the ways that are beneficial both to you and to other people, that truly bring happiness, fulfillment, peace, success, in the ways that really matter. Then you need a bit of courage, and you need to decide whether you're ready to go down that rabbit hole. Because you can't come back from it once you do. Because you cannot unlearn what you learn, if it's true. You can unlearn the wrong things that you've been taught to believe. But once you know the truth, you can't go back and pretend. Because part of you will always know it's not real and will feel wrong. just like it already does, about the areas of life where you're pretending, and it's not real, and it's not healthy, and it's not right. So I invite you to take the first step in freeing yourself by learning the truth. And it starts with learning what fear really is and how to deal with it. This is the first in a series of classes in teaching people how to achieve their full potential. It was the first class I ever recorded. And now it will be the class that I redesign, add to, update, really, expand upon, as I begin my human potential training school. Because it is at the core of everything else. It is one of the foundational issues of achieving your full potential. If you're scared of achieving your potential, you'll never walk down that road. You need to understand what fear is and why the only thing to fear is really fear itself. It's a very popular principle, but it's not popular to actually know why. Most people have no idea why. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And because of that, they're afraid of a lot of things they don't need to be afraid of. So I'm here to tell you that the key to your freedom is knowing the truth. And it starts by understanding what fear is and learning to overcome it. Learning to deal with it differently. My name is Christopher Moeller, and I am the Human Potential Coach, Quantum Empowerment Coach, founder of the Quantum Empowerment Alliance and the Quantum Empowerment Institute. And this has been your invitation, your wake-up call to getting out of the life that you're unhappy with and learning to create a life that you are happy with, that's truly fulfilling on every level and in every way. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I wish you happiness, peace, and empowerment.